Edmonton Pentimento, rereading history in the case of the Papaschase Cree. Dwayne Trevor Donald of the University of Alberta. He's still a professor there, and Dr. Huber suggested that I take his course if I want to get some more experiential learning about Aboriginal culture. It includes going out onto the land and doing Aboriginal things, which would be great, and hopefully I can fit that into my schedule. This piece is all about Mr. Donald's quest of understanding his family's history as part of a specific tribe, a specific Cree tribe called the Papaschase Cree. I learned a ton about First Nations history of this specific tribe, and that was really neat, as well as more generally Edmonton history and some ideas around what stories are told historically, and how the story of Edmonton, like the story of many Canadian cities, is often told from a capitalistic perspective, right? These hardy, what are they called? People came and built up the city based on hard work, and that's kind of the origin story of these cities. It's very Eurocentric, and it really doesn't bring in the First Nations perspective, and treats it kind of as an other, or often as a hindrance to progress. So it's really neat to learn of their specific history. Their tribe was given a specific piece of land in Edmonton in the late 1800s, I think 1880 or 1888. But right away, the settlers, which is the word I was trying to figure out before, the settlers of Edmonton had an uproar because the reserve was so close to the city. It was like 4 kilometers south or something. And the newspaper and the citizens really rallied against that tribe and it being able to be there, because they thought it was settlers' land, Edmontonians' land, our country in a Euro-Canadian speech perspective. And they kind of got pushed out of it and moved to different tribes. His grandmother collected, what's that called? What's it called? It's money to forfeit your right of being a status Indian in the future. It is called Chit? Where is it? These are definitely the most fun parts of my videos, are when I'm just trying to find what words are called. Okay, well, I'm not going to find it until later. Yeah, the history of the Cree and the Blackfoot working together with the Hudson's Bay Company, kind of having a lot of trade relations, but then the buffalo dying out and the Cree having to adjust their way of life, and trying to be more agricultural, but really struggling with that because of the pressures of the settlers. The Cree word for Edmonton is Imiskwassee, Amiskwassee, which is the Cree name for the place that we now call Edmonton. Translated to English, it's called Beaver Hills. So that's a cool thing that I'll try to remember. Edmonton is Beaver Hills, which is Amiskwassee. Another concept I learned through this reading is this idea of Pentimento, which is a art term for analyzing where artists, specifically in paintings, have changed what they've tried to do. So you can look at old paintings and sometimes you can tell, like, oh, they actually moved the eyes higher on the face, or this painting is painted over top of a previous painting. And so the idea in this Indigenous perspective is to analyze what stories have been painted over, what stories have been displaced, and how can we recognize those stories in our Canadian history. And so it's not about changing the story, it's about recognizing the multiple perspectives. This theme of multiple perspectives keeps coming up, and I watched that comedy piece Nanette on Netflix recently, a lesbian Australian talking about her life story and perspective, and in her piece, which is amazing, she talks about Picasso and Cubism, and one, how much she hates Picasso because as an individual he was a bad guy, but two, how much she does believe in the theory of Cubism, which is we're trying to represent, instead of one perspective in a piece of art, we're trying to represent multiple perspectives, and that is Cubism. She says that Picasso's main problem is that he thought that he could represent it all as an individual, but where he was right is that we should start looking at things from multiple perspectives. And that metaphor of a cube, it's like a representation of a shape that comes from many different perspectives. So about Pentimento, one cool thing that I do, which is kind of Pentimento. Again, I'm gonna have to look around my class. I'm just gonna describe it then. These are the students' hooks, and I usually have little dots that say whose hook it is. I've taken them off so that people can paint, but I leave the stickers from every previous student on there, so you can kind of see who. Oh, man. You can see what students from previous years were in your spot, or were using your duotangs or your binders, because I reuse everything in my class. So, tiny example of Pentimento. Yeah, I'm making these videos way longer than I meant to, so I'm just gonna cut it there. But that was Edmonton Pentimento, rereading history in the case of the Papaschase Cree.